Hello there and welcome back. This is our developer log for MantisBase, where we shall be going over MantisBase release version 0.3.3, which was released over a month ago. So we shall be looking briefly over what's new in this particular release and also looking at how to kind of go over some of those changes. So in particular, what's the major changes in version 0.3.3 that you might find so helpful for your use cases? One, this release ships with a real-time database subscription system. This allows you to subscribe to changes in tables as well as record rows for both SQLite database as a backend as well as PostgresQL database. Apart from this particular change, we have revamped the whole logging layer. This is to allow us to provide an API for you to monitor all the logging activities within your backend. And then we also have done a lot of changes within the admin dashboard internally to kind of improve your user experience, and we shall be looking at some of these changes a bit. And then lastly, you've been able to look at some of the bugs that were there initially and try to resolve some of them to help also improve on performance, as well as reduce some of the crashing which was observed, especially on debug builds. So let's switch to our documentation just to look at some of these changes, starting with the real-time database. Other docs for if you come to under real-time API, this will show you actually how to subscribe to the real-time database. Under the hood, it works using the server-sent events, and it allows you to maintain a connection whereby database will be pushing in changes depending on what you've subscribed to. So there are two API endpoints added to MantisBase. One of them is API/v1/realtime, and for this particular one, the method will be get. And for the get request, this allows you to initiate the connection for the SSE, and it requires you to pass in a topic, at least one topic that you want to subscribe to. If you fail to pass in a topic, then the connection will close shortly after. And then the other method provided is post, and a post request to the same endpoint requires you to pass in the client ID, which was returned in the get request, as well as the topics you want to subscribe to. Or if you pass an empty array, it is taken as to mean that you want to unsubscribe from all the topics you had subscribed to, and automatically the connection will be closed shortly after. So only those two topics have been added, and as I said, the topics is required for you to subscribe to the event. And to subscribe, you can subscribe either to a particular row. This is the row ID which you can pass in as an optional parameter, or you can just listen to the whole table for any changes. Remember, these changes will either be an insert operation, update operation, or a delete operation. So depending on the action you have done on the database records. Similarly, for the update, whereby you just want to change what you are subscribed to, you'll be required to pass in the client ID. And the client ID, you can find it from once you connect to the SSE. The first message response notifying you that you've connected to it will include the client ID as one of the response body. Then the topics, of course, should be an array of strings, and these strings should basically be either table names within your database, or table names and then you put a full colon and the row ID you want to listen to. So that's all. So let's fetch the release for 0.3.3 and look at these changes using Postman. So if you come to the GitHub release page and version 0.3.3, you can, depending if you're on Linux or Windows, you can get a pre-built binary. If you're maybe working with, let's say, Mac OS or any other platform, or ARM platforms in this particular case, you might have to build a MantisBase from scratch. But hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to provide you with some pre-built binaries. So for my case, I've already downloaded one for Linux because I'm on a Linux platform. So let me switch to my command line, and if I do an ls here, you can see I already have the binary downloaded here. So quickly you can extract the zip file, and it will show you the MantisBase binary already extracted. So to run this binary, you can just run MantisBase and then use the serve command to initiate to inform the HTTP server to start listening on a particular port. You can specify a port if you want to by passing p here, and now we can do just 7070, and that should work. Since this is the first time you are running this particular command, so by default MantisBase will create some files on your file system, and that is data directory to store your data. By default it uses an SQLite database, and then additionally the public directory is used to storing any static files you want to serve, and lastly scripts is used for having some scripts into MantisBase, although for now this has been disabled until the 0.3x version is actually been stabilized. So we need first to set up a default admin user for us to be able to access the admin dashboard. You can run this binary and use the admin command. You can check the docs for that. But automatically, this has actually provisioned for us a link for us to just use to set the admin account from the browser. So this link has been opened for me here. So I can set up an admin account by just using some dummy credentials here. So let me just set them quickly. Let's create the account. So it'll be redirected. So I was logged into a different session, so that's why I'm getting this particular error. So let me just go back to login. So let's do that. Let's log in. Good. So once you are in your admin dashboard, you should be able to see this kind of interface. By default, this shows you all the entities, and entities basically tables within your database. The second option is the logs, and I did talk earlier that we have added the logs interface into the admin dashboard. So currently you can go to query on the logs from your database, either by setting the minimum log level you want to see being displayed here. At the same time, you can switch to the exact log level you want to monitor. You can just say I want to see maybe the warnings, and currently I have none, or even the criticals, I only have one. So this allows you to set a particular scheme that you want to work with for you to maybe check on some errors within your backend. If you come back to our entities, so for us to test out the subscription option, we need to have at least one entity. So if you come to create an entity, let's call it just test. Let us even call it post. And then let's create a new post. Let's just do title here. Leave it as a string. You can change to whatever you prefer, and I'll just do create an entity. So behind the scenes, once you have an entity here, then MantisBase will try and create some hooks for them to ensure that any changes that happen in your database table is recorded somewhere within a log, and then we can be able to broadcast that to all those who have been able to subscribe to it. One thing to change here is that I want to test this using Postman, and please remember that for any API access, you need to remember that there's some access control rules that needs to be satisfied for the APIs to get access to this particular entity. For listing, this allows you to list all the records, and listing will be important if you want to do you want to subscribe to the whole entity table. So going back to documentation here, so if you are subscribing to the whole entity table, like posts in this case, you will need to have access for you to call the list endpoint. That basically allows you to list all the records in a particular entity. But if you're subscribing to a particular record ID, in this sense now a particular row within the table, you need to have permissions for you to get a particular entity in a table. So coming back to the admin dashboard, so that means we need to set this to public for now because I don't want us to do authentication. And also for the get records, I can also switch this to public here. So that means anyone can be able to make a get request to both the list endpoint as well as the get endpoint for this particular entity. So let's save the rules and then let's switch back to Postman. So in Postman, for you to initiate the connection, we talked about you calling the API v1 real-time endpoint with the get verb. And then the query parameters expected is topics. And you can pass one of many, which you can just basically separate using commas here. If you put full colon then asterisk here is a wildcard just to say I'm subscribing to all the raw records. Alternatively, you can just pass in test as we hit. So our entity is actually called post, it's not test. So yeah, you can pass it that way. So if you send this request, as I said earlier, one of the first response will give you the client ID, and this client ID is what now you'll use to update the topics you are listening to for any subsequent using the post endpoint. So if you need to update the topics you're listening to, you need to have this client ID, and it's actually provided for you here. So every 30 seconds, the server will be sending a heartbeat just to inform you that you're still connected. And after 10 minutes of, if you don't receive any updates from the database, of course, if there are no changes within the database, the connection will be closed to avoid having long-running connections. But if your intention is to maintain connections for long, you can reconnect shortly thereafter as well. So the heartbeat sent does not count into data sent in terms of maintaining the connection. So you can get a heartbeat and in the next 30 seconds, the connection is actually closed because it does not count into maintaining the connection. It's just to inform you that you're still connected. So for us to see any changes, let me move my Postman to the side so we can go to see both interfaces at the same time. So I will just also reduce this to the left. So this is the dashboard and then this is my Postman. Let me collapse that as well. Let me also, okay. So what we need to do first here is to create a new record, and let's just hit hello here, create the record, and automatically now we have a new record called with the title of hello, and then you have the record ID and the other parameters. So the action is called insert. The other action which can be provided can be update. So let's just update it to world here and save the changes. So we have the new action called update, and it's actually passing in the correct data. So also additional data provided is the entity which is being affected here, the row ID, and this is important for when you just want to get the ID that's affected. Maybe you want to do a different effect within maybe your UI layer, or even you just want to make a different request altogether just to refresh the data. Lastly, the topic here is which topic was matched for you to get this particular request. Lastly, one of the other events is to get the delete event. So if I delete this record from the database, I should be able to get a new response here, and the action is called delete. Of course, the data is null because now we have deleted data, but you'll still be getting the row ID which was affected. So if you had a message within your UI layer and you get this particular event, you can now be able to go back and check for any message for this particular ID. We need to mark it as deleted or just remove it from your particular model for this particular case. So that's all about this. As I said, you can be able to find interesting ways of just listening to different events that you have within your backend, and this works for all. You can have even 10 entities here, each of them firing different events, and you can listen to all of them. We've talked about the admin dashboard. Of course, we've gone over the changes within the logging side of things. One last thing just to show you within the entity, if you need to see documentation like for even the real time itself, there is the option here for documentation. You can click on it. This will give you documentation about the get. This is actually to list all the records within the database. This is for a particular record ID. You have a post to create a new record, patch. At the bottom here, you have one for the real-time SSC. The documentation is still a bit clunky here, but we hope to update it with subsequent versions to make it at least look more presentable. But this can help you maybe just get acquainted on how to do things. With that, that's all from this particular release. Feel free to go to the release page and download this particular release, test it out. If you experience any particular issues within your course of testing, feel free to come and create an issue, and we'll be able to look at it and respond to your particular issue. I hope you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.